This is one of the most convincing and successful arguments against the existence of God, or, as I prefer to call it, the supernatural. Let me put that another way. The big thinkers of present-day society, such as writers, philosophers, scientists, and university lecturers, think that this line of reasoning settles a problem for good. Yes, I have to agree, it's a very good argument, but it doesn't settle everything, and it needs an answer. In case you're not sure of the basis of this argument, I'll summarize it briefly, and then look at the counter-argument. If you go back far enough in human history, that is, up to or beyond the Stone Age, and examine the history of ritual, such as burial sites, cave paintings, stone monuments, megaliths, and so on, you'll discover that humans invented the supernatural because of fear. Virtually everything caused fear. The rustle of grass when there was no wind, the eruption of volcanoes, the ground shaking with earthquakes. Humans learnt to live with fear for hundreds of thousands of years and treated with care and respect. If they didn't, they died. There was also the daily fear of the unknown. If I go out hunting today, will my family still be here when I return? Why are we constantly chased by predators? Why does the sun disappear at night? Why was the entire village swept away by flood? Why do people die of disease? Why is living such a struggle and dying is easy? It wasn't long before early humans began to bury their dead in ritual and ceremony, along with valuables and weapons they used during their very short lives. Fear and death were the beginning of religion. Respect for the dead, respect for those who were stronger or faster than you, and respect for the gift of fear. All these were the daily existence for early humans, and you will see later in this video that they are also the basic scenario of the Bible Old Testament. So many people complain about the violence and death in the Old Testament stories, not realizing that they are the Hebrew version of the struggles to survive of the same early humans. So with fear and ritual burials, it was then only a short step from respect to worship, where everything unknown, fearful or powerful became a deity. Animal deities, sun deities, rain gods, fertility gods, fire gods, and so on. By 1000 BCE, the Egyptians had over 1,500 deities. And what do all these deities have in common? Two things. They were all self-invented, and they are all a delusion. They don't exist in reality. They only exist in the mind of those who invented them and those who choose to follow those inventions. So we now come to the punchline of this argument. What makes the ancient Israelite invention of their deity, Yahweh, any different? Isn't Yahweh just as much a delusion? So, not only is this a good argument philosophically, but it's also based upon real evidence in paleontology, anthropology, and archaeology. But now, for the counter-argument. If the ancient Israelites of the Bible invented Yahweh, it appears more than likely that they invented a God which they didn't want. Why would they do that? The entire Hebrew Bible, or Old Testament as we know it, is a detailed account of the supposed dealings between the Hebrew Yahweh and the Israelites. It's a story of failure and rejection from the beginning to the end. Even before the Israelites existed as a nation, virtually every chapter of Genesis has a verse which records that early humans did not want Yahweh. At the time of the Exodus from Egypt, complaint after complaint is levelled at the Israelite leaders, Moses and Aaron, as you can see on the screen. As Moses and Aaron represented Yahweh, then really it was Yahweh they were complaining about. By the time of the kings and judges, the Israelites really had had enough and demanded a human being to rule over the nation. So why would the Jewish people go to so much trouble over many hundreds of years, writing a detailed history of their relationship with Yahweh, when this history is a story of failure and rejection? Not to mention impossible laws, slavery, ethnic cleansing, and racial discrimination. Why would they do that? All the signs indicate that this deity imposed itself upon the Israelites of the Old Testament, and it was against their wishes. For that to happen, the deity had to exist in some form. If you still find this a weak argument, don't forget that it happened twice. The first century Jews rejected the second deity, as represented by Yeshua, Jesus, and sent him to his death. Yeshua must have known his history quite well, as he told this parable to his disciples. It's a summary of the rejection of Yahweh and himself over the generations. In this parable, the landlord is Yahweh. The tenants are everybody that has ever lived, but the Jewish people in particular. The vineyard is planet Earth, and the servants are the prophets, priests, and kings of Israel. I did say there was a counter-argument, as in one counter-argument. However, I can't really leave this subject without mentioning a second argument which also occurs within the same timeline of the ancient Israelites and Hebrew Bible. Prophecy. It is generally accepted that humans cannot predict the future. They are subject to the time and space of the present. It is also accepted that over the course of human history, no other deity or supernatural entity has prophesied the future, or presumed to prophesy the future, apart from the Hebrew Yahweh. So, how does the Bible predict the future with such accuracy and detail when the Bible has presumably been written by human hand? Here are just a few examples. World events, countries and empires, population, wars, economic collapse, the gaps between rich and poor, the pollution of the earth, the plundering of its resources, floods and their association with climate change, political corruption, that troubles in the Middle East will be a sign of the end of the world, the longest war in history, how and when Jesus will be born, live and die, and how and when Jesus will return. Many of these prophecies have already happened. The prophecy of the rise and fall of empires in Daniel chapter 2 is probably the most important prophecy in the Hebrew Bible, Old Testament. 4 parts of this prophecy have already happened. The 5th part we are living in today, and the 6th part is in the future. It never ceases to amaze me how this chapter describes our present world so precisely. The mix of iron and clay. I have to assume that this can only mean the many different ethnic groups crowded together in cities, giving the appearance of mixing together, but in reality being poles apart in way of life and beliefs. But the question remains, if humans cannot predict the future, who or what caused these prophecies to be written? The conclusion, for me at least, is that it's extremely unlikely that Yahweh is a humanly devised delusion. This would be a good place to end. Unfortunately, we are faced with 2 problems if we assume or believe that the Hebrew Yahweh exists. The first is how that will affect your life personally, and the second is, was Yahweh really responsible for all the violence, suffering and death which the Bible writers say he was? I will examine the second problem in the second part of this video.